let's look at Elon Musk, for example, with SpaceX.
Yeah.
You know, he was getting, it's a very cash intensive.
Extremely, I mean, you're trying to go to space here,
Exactly,
you know?
Right? And I was reading his story about how, he had so many investors, pouring money. He's using the money that he's gotten from PayPal and all these other ventures to really, really fund this project, right? But then it got to a point where his money ran out, and he had to try and decide, okay, was he going to shut down or is he going to keep the business alive? I think at the end of the day, you talk about burnout. There are certain situations where it doesn't even matter how you feel.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in a cash intensive business, right, the cash will tell you that it's time.
It's time.
What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Grind.
BTG!
Hey, if this is your first time here, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our content. Our podcast is really about business and lifestyle. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. My name is Kay.
My name is Alan.
My name is Tosin. And today we're going to start with moon boots.
Moon boots?
Have you guys ever heard of this thing called moon boots? Oh man, y'all should go and Google it. All right, because we just went on spring break and we went. It was fun. It was fun. We went to Denver area, Aspen, and these moon boots are all about. Sorry, you.
What?
But. So these moon boots are all about like snow boots, pretty much. And it's like this company that blew up from everywhere, and every single person over there, actually women, sorry, not person, women out there were all wearing these moon boots. And when my wife was trying to buy some, I was like, what is this thing that you're just looking all over the place for the right one? And I guess you guys don't know what I'm talking about, but it should be a good thing that you don't know.
It sounds like it was ugly though and expensive.
No, it's nice, but they don't make it. I don't think they. I didn't research it if they made it for men anyway, but it's
like something that rich people wear.
It's alright. So
above our pay grade.
Nah, go dude. All right, so getting serious.
What can I say?
Getting serious about this thing. I know last week we were talking about failures and all that good stuff. But then somebody approached me and was like, yeah, we get it that, you don't, you need to be prepared. You shouldn't fear failure, fail forward, all the good stuff that we mentioned. But they were like, at some point, sometimes it happens in business where you need to close up shop. Yeah. It's like, when do I know it's time to close? And not that I just need to press on because maybe I'm going through a little valley here or something, right? How do I know it's time to close for real?
I think you have to evaluate yourself. So, there are many times when it's like time to close, but you have enough fire, right? To go get funding and do that and yada, yada, yada. I think a lot of the times when we think it's time to close, sometimes it's because we're burnt out. So you gotta differentiate, because there's gonna be like, there are many companies, they go through like severe downturns where they're just hemorrhaging money. And most people are up and left. Yeah. But they see an opportunity. They found a way to objectively kind of like foresee what they did wrong, evaluate what they did wrong, what they need to improve. And they still have the fire in their belly to go through the storm and keep weathering through it. So I think if you're at a point where you realize this isn't just burnout, I don't want it anymore, you got to go. No amount of power through it is gonna get you there. And so that's how I feel. Whenever you feel like, like I don't even like this anymore. Mm-hmm. Like even if I made more money, I wouldn't even like this. Because you could get on the other side and be like,
money ain't
I still want to close
sometimes.
or sell, right? But I think number one, you have to objectively identify what the issues were that got you to that position. And then 2, identify what the opportunities are to be able to get you out of that. And then 3, how do we not get into this position again
The next time.
So if you can identify that and you have the fire in your belly to get through it and adequately anticipate it's going to take you this amount of time, and then times that by 3, because that's realistically what they're going to be stuff you didn't even think about. And then, you got to have a strong family. It's like, my family going to be there with me, or friends, or whatever, my support group, are they going to be there? What does everyone think about it? And then you make your decision. But to solely close just based on, we're getting beat down, a lot of businesses go through that, and they come out through the fire like steel, forged and whatnot. So it's a more of a personal decision once you get past the discovery phase, right? Mm-hmm. Discovering what it was that got you there and how to get out. Then you got to ask yourself, okay, this is what I need to do, this one. Do I even want to do this?
Okay.
That's another thing. Like, do you want to do it? Because it can be possible, but you just don't want to do it at all, So that's my take on it for right now.
I guess for me, when I think about it, I've had lots of experience, when I've had to make that decision to decide whether I want to continue or I want to shut down. But on one hand, I've had to shut down because of the declining market. If you're running a business and you realize that the market isn't demanding what you're providing, then at that point you're kind of shooting yourself on the foot.
Right. Pivot or close.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So, but not every business
is able to pivot.
Yeah.
Not every,
So
especially like if you own a CPA business, right? You can't just pivot and say you want to get into the movie studio business. That's like,
or can he?
But
soon.
If you say you want to probably switch to maybe wealth management or something like that, that might be a little bit much more realistic because it's still in the finance area, right?
Yes.
Right. When I made the decision to shut down my business, Zazu, 2 things were quite eminent. Number 1, financial loss. Every time, because we had adopted the model of building the valuation of the company. So essentially what happened is when you're building your company based on valuation, you rely so much on outside investment. And when that investment dries up, all the future plans that you've had
also
you can't finance those things anymore.
Big
financial loss was number 1, but number 2, which was the biggest one, was the financial obligation, right? And so on one part, you're losing money, in your books, but on another end, you can't pay your staff. You can't pay the rent. You can't do anything. And you're looking at your monthly burn rates, and you're looking at
the remaining cash.
And you're
not sleeping, right?
And anybody who knows anything about business, the rule number 1 is never use your personal money to try and keep your business alive, because if things don't work out,
even if you use the bank money,
he said keep your business alive, not help, like meaning living. That is the life source of your personal money.
Other people always use other,
but you still gonna need to pay it back.
Yeah, but
if it's personally guaranteed,
yes, but there's still a little bit of a buffer, between your actual bank account money.
But if your business shut down, what the bank gonna do?
Right.
There's nothing they can do.
But you personally guaranteed
they can do stuff, but
they can do something.
It's better to
but an
deal
investor,
with that.
it's just an investor can't do anything, but the bank probably has some kind of recourse.
Yeah, they'll do stuff, but the thing is that
depends how you set up your business.
It's better than my bank account's empty. I can't even. I got to be on the street today. You know what I mean? So,
but I think generally, a lot of times, when you think about shutting down your business, I think if you are in a position where you can't pivot and there's declining market demand and you're constantly experiencing financial loss, as well as you're not able to meet your financial obligation, it can lead to burnout, which might, give you the sense that, okay, it might be time to shut down this thing.
Correct.
I think
Well
even
put.
like underinvestment into a business,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
If you start it up and it's like, man, this thing is going to take a whole lot more than what I'm even expecting.
Yeah.
Right. I got into this, I got this space, I got everything, but now the space is empty.
Right.
I'm barely able to get people to help me. I feel burned out.
Right.
I don't have enough financing to even hire somebody to help me run this business.
Right.
That might be another thing.
And I like the fact that you mentioned that, right? But I also want you to look at a real life example. Let's look at Elon Musk, for example, with SpaceX.
Yeah.
He was getting, it's a very cash intensive.
Extremely, you're trying to go to space here,
Exactly, right? And I was reading his story about how, he had so many investors, pouring money. He's using the money that he's gotten from PayPal and all this other ventures to really, really fund this project, right? But then it got to a point where his money ran out and he had to try and decide, okay, was he going to shut down or is he going to keep the business alive? I think at the end of the day, you talk about burnout. There are certain situations where it doesn't even matter how you feel.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a cash intensive business,
Right.
the cash will tell you that it's time.
It's
to shut
time,
down.
yeah.
Well, look, that's why I said the first three. You got to first do the first three, and then you decide, do I even want to do it?
Well,
If the first three
even
don't,
if
if the first, but I'm saying, if the first three don't check out, doesn't matter.
yeah.
So
So
you got to identify the problem.
Yeah.
You got to figure a way out of it, and then
Yeah.
figure if you can
Yeah.
weather out the
Yeah.
time,
yeah.
and
So
then you decide.
And I think I would say that for folks out there, deciding when to shut down is not a black and white thing. I think it's heavily dependent on the type of business that you have.
Yeah.
If you have a business that you can kind of, put to the side, in stagnation for you to kind of do some research or, do some work behind the scene and then come back harder than ever, then that might make sense, right? But if you have a type of business that requires a lot of cash to continue to function, and operate, it's
If you're over as I think it's just, I think back to what I said with the three things. Sometimes it's hard. You can identify, okay, we have a cash flow problem, right? And we need more cash.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you have more cash, is whatever caused you to be in a cash deficit, is that fixed? Because more money isn't the solution.
No.
Right?
No.
You could have a lot of money.
You got holes in your pockets.
Well, yeah, you could have a lot of money and you're like, man, I need to attract more clients. You spend all the money on marketing and they all like suck.
yeah.
You're still in the same situation. So I think the issue is never really just a cash flow problem. It's an issue of what is it that is supposed to drive the business forward and who can solve that problem. If you can solve that problem, it's easier to get the money when you actually have a pipeline to grow it. Because you could have the money and it don't matter. It's just gonna buy you time until you're back in the same situation.
Well,
and that's the key. That's when you're like, I don't even know how to solve this. That's when you're like, I gotta go.
Yep. And to back up your point, think about Blockbuster, right? The market, was not declining.
No.
They just didn't adapt. So
Right.
sometimes as a business, if you're functioning and you refuse to adapt to
Yeah.
Well, you don't know how to.
or-
Because sometimes
yeah.
it isn't.
No,
I'm not talking about them.
no.
I'm just saying sometimes
Not Blockbuster,
people
but yeah,
don't
you
know
were talking
how
about
to.
other business owners that may be watching. Yeah.
Because I think part of running a business, it's not just about today.
right.
It's about tomorrow.
Forecasting.
You need to constantly keep thinking, where's the market going? Where's the demand going? How can we make sure that we are positioning ourselves to be as innovative so that when opportunity presents itself, we're not catching up. We're not, reacting, but we're, just
Prepared.
I agree with you, but the only problem is that I feel many of us business owners and entrepreneurs, we're more like we're business owner employees pretty much. We're in the weeds of our business that we don't have time to do that kind of analysis that you're talking about.
You know why that's difficult, right? Most of us are solo entrepreneurs, meaning we're the sole leader of our business.
Yes.
When there's,
I mean, that's the majority of businesses out
but
there.
when you have two doing the two minds doing it,
Well, the
you
two
can
must
kinda-
walk in accord, sir.
Yes,
and we
of
already
course.
talked about partnerships.
We did.
and,
But
you know,
I've seen a lot of the successful ones have been because of there's been joint efforts. So you're not one person sharing the burden, unless you're not aligned, and then you just have double the trouble. And you're doubly trying to grow twice the empire instead of growing the first one and then expand from them.
Yeah.
But the most successful one I've seen has been like, it's usually been started by two or greater. There is a point where they split and make, cause but they've already had that foundation like we spoke about. Like if it takes you a long time to build a business, it's not going to crumble over time, right?
Yeah.
It just has the infrastructure and everything there. Even when you split up, unless you decide to just let it crumble, it still takes time. So unless you're Blockbuster and you don't adapt at all, you choose not. You let your ego and hubris in that situation take over rather than at least trying something new. But I do see that like when you have double the input, you have less overhead and you have twice the, usually double the innovation. Where you're stuck on this and you're stuck, he's like, why don't we do this? That's why they say two heads are better than one, right?
yeah.
So that's what I've noticed.
Here's how I look at it, right? Because I want to touch on the point that you mentioned about solo entrepreneur, right? Yeah, a lot of time you're so focused on a day-to-day that you rarely get the time to think about what tomorrow look like. For me, I still think that that's not a good enough excuse, because running a business is like going to school. You never stop learning.
Yep.
Yeah.
Think about your business. No matter how much you know about accounting, right? There's always different aspect. I was speaking to a friend of mine and I said, what is the hardest part about running a business? He said, the hardest part about running a business is not the actual idea that you're or
whatever
the problem you're solving.
Yeah.
It's the operational aspect.
The execution.
Oh my God.
The execution
Oh
aspect.
my goodness.
Because you essentially have to be, everything.
That's two
Finance, HR, like all these things that you have to know, right? And then on top of that, you have to constantly think like, okay, what can I do to optimize operation so that I have enough time to be able to think about tomorrow? Okay, assuming that I'm a solo entrepreneur, right? If I'm going out there and I'm onboarding clients or whatnot, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm looking at my competitors and I'm seeing what they're doing, right? Why is it that I'm not doing the same thing? Or why is it that I'm not investing in technology that can optimize things so that there's less time focused on operation, more time on automation, which means that I can actually have time to think about tomorrow? I think a lot of time is because people refuse to educate themselves on what they need to do to actually be innovative that they're not solely focused on operation.
So you had like a lot of points there.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I'm still gonna come at him for one of them.
Let me say one thing, just to like the last thing you said. I forgot like three of them.
Rewind.
But, hey, can you run that back? No, I don't think it's that they failed to educate themselves. I think it's they're just so busy. They are trying to find ways. There's only one of them a day.
Yeah.
And not everyone's adept at being organized enough to remove, okay, look, I'm just going to go ahead and take all Tuesday and Wednesdays off. Because they're like, we're going to lose money if I'm not doing that. All Tuesday and Wednesdays up, and my project for this quarter is to get the structure. So I think in the beginning stages, it's just few, right? So everybody's wearing a lot of hats, right? You don't ever get a chance to really, you have to force and plan a time to take off the hat, even at the cost of losing money or revenue or being inefficient in other areas in order to put this in place and organize that to make that happen. And it's hard for people to do when they're always on a struggle, right? They're always hustling. So it's hard unless you get to a situation where you're like, there's a little bit of luck sprinkled in there. There's some, some of it is the business owner. Some of it is luck, right? That you can't predict, where you're just like, man, I'm cash flowing a lot. And you're like, all right, I can take a break now and just figure this out, because now that I get a moment to do this before things go, left and sideways and whatnot, let me go ahead and put things in place and then go back in. And you know what I mean? Like I think that's the big issue for a lot of people. It's not that they don't invest. It's they're like, man, like, how am I going to do this when I'm an owner operator?
Yes.
Like, I need to make time and not be an operator and just be an owner. So I got to replace myself, which means I got to stay up at night looking through Indeed resumes and hiring people.
You've got to
because
go
I don't
above
have an
and
HR
beyond,
person yet. Then I can get someone who might be underneath me and help me manage some things, because when you start the business, you're just training people and doing things yourself or whatever. And then it's easier said than done. You have to make that conscious effort to take that hit, just knowing that this is going to be better in the future. And it's difficult for a lot of people to do that.
What are your
I don't remember his other.
No worries, no worries.
What are your thoughts?
But same thing, kind of that same thought, right? Many of us entrepreneurs, we may not have that luxury of finding a good partner or going into that business where it's just easy to have people around you, right? I can think of even doctors. When you start out, you're the one producing. If you don't show up, nothing is being produced. Whether you're a dentist,
you're the whole day.
Yeah, you're the whole thing. If you're sick for the day, no money is coming in.
You ain't working.
Or maybe you're a chef. All right. Yeah, you have some helping hands around the kitchen. You've got someone in the front and all that stuff. You don't show up, even if you're sick, no money's coming in.
They don't even.
You know what I hear when you guys say
What?
that? All I hear is a bunch of excuses.
It's
It's
not an excuse.
Just wait. There's nobody running business as a solo business, as a solo entrepreneur. There's nobody running their business for 24 hours.
That's what we just said.
Yeah,
though. You got to stay up at night and sacrifice.
No, but that's
what I'm
means-
trying to say.
That's if you don't even have family to take up the other
But here's
rest
the
of
thing.
your
So,
hours.
when I say excuses, my favorite quote about excuses are the bricks laid out for failure. Meaning that the more excuses you make, the more bricks you stack up in front of you.
Nobody is excusing it.
I love those self-help
because
book
that's
quotes.
what you have to do to get there, right?
What you guys said is exactly what somebody that doesn't have time would say. I don't have time because I have to get involved.
I didn't say they don't have time. I said they have to consciously schedule that.
Right.
Because they have to take off or do it at night.
But a lot of people don't. And which
Exactly.
is what Wilson is justifying.
No, he's not justifying.
I'm not
He's
justifying
saying
it,
it is difficult because so his business, for instance, if he's solo CPA, he's doing all the taxes, he's gonna get a break. I'm never gonna get a break. I literally have to do it at night. Their business is designed like you go to the doctor's office, you're seeing the doctor. If he don't show up, if he take a lunch, patients can't be seen. You see what I'm saying?
Unless you hire another doctor.
Exactly.
You know how much it costs to hire a doctor?
And you have to do that. And mind you, you're sitting here doing treatment, right? And I'm a dentist, right? So you're sitting here doing procedure. Dr. Charles, can you... No, you see what I'm saying? Like, you got to solve the problems while you're in the chair. They come with a sticky pad. You walk out for a second. Hey, do that. Okay, we're right.
Man.
You walk out. You got to go take a call. You got to go. There's no time within the day for most people in certain industries, because we're not like a work from home industry or a computer industry where I could look up stuff online while I'm drilling on teeth or something, So you actually have to make the conscious effort, be like, look, Tuesdays, I'm not going to be here for 3-4 hours. I got to get this done.
Yeah.
And then if you have a family, you get home, you know how that goes. Yeah. So you're like burnt out. You finally get a moment at 10 and you have to literally make that conscious effort, be like, look, from 10 to 2, I'm gonna do this, and you just sitting here like half asleep. It's not an excuse,
And then
it's
you got to
just a
wake up
reality.
at 5 and go
And
work
not
out.
everyone has that to be able to say, I'm gonna you have 1 or 2 options: stay up all night or pick a day.
Right.
And if you don't make, it's not something that you be like, when I have time, I'll do it. You have to make the conscious effort and block that time out and commit to it. And that's the hardest part.
And the issue is that no one in your business is going to care as much as you will.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
You can even have a team. Like Alan mentioned, yes, he's a dentist, he's got people. Yes, I'm a CPA, I've got a team. But we are also thinking for these people while we are trying to work on the business, like Robert Kiyosaki says, right? Work on the business rather than in business. Yeah. But in the business, it pulled me down.
These investment people, these startup investment people, they don't know.
They just throw money like, hey,
he watching ESPN talking about, I gotta work.
You know,
I'm done working.
They're in their WeWork lounges.
You guys know who Myron Golden is, right?
Of course.
So he said something that was key. He said in life is in business, there are seasons.
Yes.
There's the balance season and then there's the focus season, right? When you're focused, you're not balanced, right? Because you're so focused, you're trying to get stuff done. And then when you're balanced, you're out of focus, right? It sounds like what you guys are saying is, look, when you are a solo entrepreneur, you know, you're in a focus season. So there isn't much time to be able
to create balance.
Because you're thinking about today rather than tomorrow. Now, in your business, you're in a state of balance because now the workload is spread out, right?
Yeah.
The question I have for you guys is, why do you guys think that solo entrepreneurs are not proactive when it comes to, as what you say, being intentional about creating the time to think about tomorrow?
Because I think solo entrepreneurs it's hard to get. So let me back up. So they first feel like, and are taught, and honestly, Bills, they have to get ahead enough in order to create that. And they don't really ever are ahead enough. And that's a big issue. Once they're ahead enough, in their head, they say, next year I'm gonna do this. This year I'm gonna do this. The year goes by. Flies.
So you're saying it's the mentality.
It's the mentality and the finances. So
Yes.
let me finish.
Okay.
You have to understand that it's like the chicken or the egg, right? Does your money come first, or does you setting up things and whether you're eating? Because you got families. Solo entrepreneurs usually, you know, they're paying for the bills, so they're like, look, if I don't work this day, I'm losing this much money, and usually when you're starting up, you're barely making it, if not in the red. So you're already working probably 2 jobs. Then when you leave the one job for the other job, trying to think like, oh, I'm gonna have a business. Well, then you just have another job where you're there, and they don't really. I guess my advice to people is that if you're thinking about doing a business, stay with your regular job. Let it be a passive business or passive income or a side gig until you snowball enough residual or cushion reserve income. Then you can plan and be like, hey, I'm not going to work myself to death in this new job like I did when I worked for someone. I'm going to plan it to be 3 days a week I'm doing a business, 4th day I'm doing nothing business-wise. And that's the issue. People don't always plan like that. They plan to get the money going and then finally remove themselves for it. And not a lot of people are kind of taught to think in that manner, because it's like you're losing money. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, well, I'm losing money. I can do that when I make money. When I make money, I'll get like this. And that becomes a mentality. And when you get in the trap of living as an entrepreneur, paycheck to paycheck, it becomes even more difficult to make those decisions, right? Because it's like, well, I can't pay my rent if I don't work this, you know what I mean?
This hard.
Exactly. Yeah. So the issue now becomes, well, next year I'll make it big, and they never do. So I advise people, if they can, anytime your credit is great, go get more funding. You don't have to use it, but you have it available, whether it's a line of credit or anything.
That's a good
so
one.
that you can plan to get yourself out of any bind and grow.
You just added a third thing to but yes, I do say it a lot that
Underfunded.
the time to get financing is not when you need it.
Yeah.
Right.
When you have good credit, get it.
It's
Regardless.
when everything is golden. You think you don't need it.
Like, I got
just
800 credit
have
score.
it sitting
Go get
aside.
everyone.
Everything, every single thing. If you don't get anything from today, get that. Get a HELOC, get a line
I
of
didn't
credit.
learn that till later.
All the stuff.
I didn't learn that till later because I was like, I don't need money.
Yeah.
I don't need money. I got
all these credits that you're talking about. Maybe it's like I think one of these banks that gives HELOCs or whatever. It's maybe like $150 a year just to have it active.
Yeah.
And you don't need to pay if you don't use it.
Yeah.
Right. But going back to what we were talking about,
I want to hear your perspective.
Sorry.
What you guys were talking about is something I call running faster than your problems. All right. And many of us entrepreneurs, we are very undercapitalized.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
100%.
think that doing the business is, once I get in, I'm the best. I'm going to be, it's just up from here, straight up,
Right.
and you forget that business is like, whew.
Yeah.
And sometimes it leads up. Sometimes it leads down for a while and then it comes back up.
like the
and,
stock market,
My
bro.
goodness, not like the stock market because the stock market has been just doing
It's like
this.
marriage.
Not
lately.
Not lately. Yeah.
But that is really what causes the problems.
Yeah.
I had a client come in today and tell me, hey, Tosin, I know I'm starting this new business. I want a business loan. She understood that, hey, you got to get properly capitalized and so on and so forth. I'm like, no bank is going to give you a loan. She's like, huh? I'm like, okay, sorry for being so blunt. Let me back it up a little bit. All right. Your only option is going to be SBA.
Yeah.
All right. So I pulled up the SBA's website and I'm like,
of
here,
stuff you gotta
look, here's the requirements and here's the interest rate. She's like, ah! Why? Because the SBA charges you prime plus.
Yeah.
All right. So if you get 50, so since I looked at it today, I kind of know
Can you educate our audience what
so
Prime
it
Plus
was
is?
if you get $50,000
What's
or less,
What's prime, Tosin?
right now is 7.5%.
What does that mean?
Oh Lord!
Give us a one-liner.
So prime is how do you make it less technical?
just make
It's It's like what most banks or most financial what do you call it? Financial institutions will loan to each other.
Right.
Let's just use that. All right. Even though that's the Fed funds rate, but never mind. Okay. Just use that.
Use that.
As of today, it's 7.5%.
Yeah.
So how the SBA determines their interest rate is that they start at the 7.5%.
Then they add their
Wow.
Okay, so if you have if I remember correctly, if you try and borrow $50K from the SBA, it's an extra 6.5%.
Sound like a payday. You never paid off.
Once she started seeing that, she's like loud,
Which is crazy because 3 years ago it was like nothing.
Well, that's because
I know,
prime
I
was
know,
much
I know,
lower.
prime was lower. I know,
and so on, right? So I was just telling her that, you know what? Even though you might think that you're undercapitalized, maybe you can start it small, like we were saying, right? Rather than having to take on all these obligations, because there is, and this might be a future podcast show, but there is what I call the weight of debt, right? There, people say there's good and bad debt, but I don't want to touch on that too much. All right. But really, if you can start it small, like you guys said, maybe start it part-time or something like that.
Right.
The failure or knowing when to stop is not going to hurt you as much as
If you go
when
all
you
in.
have employees. And then now you're actually like
People's lives are in your
people's
hands.
lives.
Right.
And you're like, Lord, like every
You're
day, your heart,
not a good feeling,
you're having all kinds of heart, blood pressure issues just because you're worried about all of these things. And maybe
hard.
we should have started it a little bit small. It is hard.
It is hard.
Okay, so let's look at it like this, because I'm a very practical guy, right? I've heard you and I've heard you.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you guys this, and I want a very quick answer. On average, for a solo entrepreneur, how many hours in a day do you think they work on their
Full-time
business?
or part-time?
Full time.
Probably like 22 hours.
22 hours
On or in? You saying on or in?
in their business.
Yeah.
In their
like
business.
22 hours.
So you're saying
day?
that
While they're sleeping, they still working.
Yeah.
I can
Mentally.
Somebody post it in the comments,
not
please.
in, that's on. That's on.
No, but that's in. Well, I mean,
that's what I said,
in
on
and
or
on
in?
is still working
Nah,
on the
like,
business.
you can't tell me Shabak is thinking about.
Bruh. if bookings don't happen in this studio,
Shabak was like,
my
what?
man is praying while he's sleeping, okay?
Shabak's our producer. Shout out.
Shabak is our producer. Shout out to
Yes.
Shabak.
He's the man. He's doing everything.
Okay, so in that case, then I can understand where you're coming from, because my mentality was, at the very least, if I'm working on my business 10 hours in a day,
Yes.
Yeah.
it doesn't cost me anything to come home and say 2 to 3 times in a week, I'm going to set aside some time to do some research to figure out, okay, I'm spending 10 hours. What can I do to make it 8 hours?
I think a lot of people do that, but you need people usually,
I'm saying.
and it's hard. That's a whole process.
Yes.
Until you get
It's
people.
It is.
Because if you look at it from this angle, right? There is that mindset, or at least I have this mindset, that if there is an issue, unless you tackle the issue, it's not going away.
Yeah.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? So it's like you're going in circle until you deal with it.
But
Nobody's coming to save you.
But my
You
whole
gotta
point
save
is,
yourself.
okay, so let's say you're trying to bring clients to your business, right?
Right.
Whatever business you have, you're having the same issue. You tried marketing, you tried like 30 marketing companies. You still have the same issue. Then what?
Okay, perfect.
So what's the solution?
The solution is, maybe I need to spend 1 or 2 hours either speaking to people about potentially referring clients to me, so that I can give them an incentive. Maybe like, hey, Toast and I were just talking about
And
this.
so say you've tried that.
Right. And then you think
Keep doing it.
You got to realize
It takes
it's
time,
about-
right?
It's like business. Nobody knows it all.
Right.
No.
It's like a trial and error. I think
And
in marketing,
everybody's
they call it-
business looks different
Right.
anyway.
Yeah, in marketing they call it what? A/B testing.
Yep.
Like,
A/B split
you try
testing.
this, it doesn't work. You try that. I
Yeah.
remember when I brought in my growth marketer
Yeah.
in my business.
A/B split test.
And
everything.
I essentially said, hey, I need you to figure out what works. And she said, let's throw $1 here, let's throw $1
Yeah.
here, let's throw $1 here, let's throw $1 here. And
Let's
let's see
see
which
which
one
one
performs the
Yeah.
best. And if we realize that one performs the best, okay, let's throw $10. And if we can get results, then we have confidence that this is where we need to be focused
But
on.
it's marketing.
So to your question, if I tried this, because marketing is quite generic, right? But if I tried this,
Yeah. Yes and no.
if I tried this, if it doesn't work, tomorrow I'm gonna try this. If that doesn't work, maybe ultimately I might need to look for a consultant.
So that's what I'm trying to say. So then ultimately the goal of any business, if you're not good at marketing, is to either figure it out or have a marketing team.
Yeah, but you need
To be
time.
honest, I'll be
You need
honest.
time to
Yes,
be able
yes.
to make that decision.
Yes, correct. But what I'm trying to say is if you are a solo entrepreneur, you are the marketing team and you're doing the work.
Oh
No,
no,
seriously,
even if
when
we're
you
saying
start up-
solo entrepreneur,
when
it
you
doesn't mean that you don't have a
start
team.
up.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Because let me give you this example of a longtime client. I think she was like my second client,
Oh, I thought I was your second client.
Oh boy, we've been existing.
Nah,
since.
man.
No,
I was
she's brilliant. She's running a school. Maybe I shouldn't give too much, but she's brilliant. She's got maybe 50 staff members and whatever. But because she's brilliant, she's got all these. She runs a what do you call it? A career school. All right. She's got all of these ideas of, hopefully I don't call her out, but she's got all these ideas of different programs that, people really benefit from, and change
But
their
no way
lives
of
and all that
getting it.
stuff. But she's the only person that can drive it and develop it and all that stuff. She doesn't have that team. Her team is good enough to just coast.
And that's a problem.
Yes.
Because it means that
But it's
her
very-
business will never grow.
No, I know, but I guess the issue I'm having is
That's what we're
this
saying.
in theory is easy. Go find this, go find
Yes.
that. But you're
said
assuming some people aren't trying to find
She
that
was
and
doing
still
business
can't
before
find
I
that.
was
No, it's
even
not
starting my
assumption.
business.
So remember, I said the key word or the key phrase there, go find it. Remember, I said you have to dedicate time to go find it. You
Right.
guys said there's no time to go find it.
It literally could take 5 years. I'm not joking.
No, but you
to
guys say
find
there's
this.
no time to go
And-
find it because you're so focused on today's
That's
That
it.
was
operation.
that was
That's
a different
it.
thing. But I'm saying
You're
even,
busy running faster than your problems that you can't even focus on
but the issue
to try and
is,
come
I guess
through.
the issue is like, you can try as you may. It does not mean you'll find a solution. What you'll do, you might not find whatever person needed to replace or whatever that's adequate. But you will find is that you've learned all the ones that will never work.
Exactly.
1,000 of them
But that
won't
didn't
work.
help your current
It
situation.
didn't help you, but it helped you waste less money. That's
And-
all it
and
is. But you're
also-
still in the same
and even
situation.
if you don't
and
find
you
the
gain
answer-
some insight
Yes.
into the industry in which you're trying to get help in.
Correct. If you don't find the answer, your time has not gone to waste because you're still pursuing freedom. Or maybe
Meanwhile,
not necessarily freedom.
your bills are still billing.
And that,
And that's the issue
so
I'm trying
what
to say.
most so like
And I'm not trying to depress anyone. I'm just trying to give the real pains of real business people.
So it's
not
almost-
saying you're not rich.
so it's almost like that bird in hand type of analogy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you can see it out there. Hey, you can research it. Hey, I need this XYZ person and all that stuff. But there's something I got right now. And if I take my eyes off of it,
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen.
But
If it's still going to be there by the time I come back to
Yeah,
it.
because you gotta actually
we
remove
can-
yourself.
Hold up. We can all agree today
Uh-huh.
that because it's about delayed gratification. The pain, sometimes you need to experience pain right now,
And possibly fail.
right?
Well, that's what we're talking about.
I know.
You know?
Even if you fail, right, you're only delaying the inevitable anyway.
Correct.
Does that
That's
make
what I
sense?
was trying to say.
So
you might as well fail now
Exactly.
than wait.
Exactly.
But the thing is, that's what you think. Other people like, nah, I'd rather enjoy this a little bit and fail later when I'm ready for it.
It doesn't matter what
That's
anybody
what I'm
thinks. I think
saying,
it's
It's better to like slide down the
Slide
hill
down.
than to fall off a cliff.
and
He says
It
he
feels
wants to
better.
somersault.
It
off the
feels better
cliff.
to slide down the hill. You know what I mean?
But some of us are risk seeking, you know, thrill seeking. Like they like the somersault off the
delay
cliff.
the inevitable. But I think at the end of the day, we can all agree that whether you have time or you don't have time, unless you dedicate the time to be innovative and think about tomorrow, you will always be in the rat
I
race.
think the innovation is not the issue; it's the action. Because I think most business people are very
you can
like
act
they're
all day long.
constantly
If you're not being innovative,
no, they're constantly researching, figuring out there. But then, oh man, I gotta stay up all night, or I gotta call and interview 300 people in the next month. You know what I mean? I gotta bring them in, try them out. It's not like they're not finding and seeking the knowledge. It's like they're like, man, that might take me
I think
all this man hours and then end up with nothing.
you're looking at innovative from a different angle. When I say be innovative, I'm talking about a strategy. Set a strategy on how you're going to do whatever you're going to do to
And
help
follow
you.
through. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, I mean, just to go back, if you're going to decide to shut down, right, if you can't adapt, you know that the market is going to swallow you up
Yeah.
and people are going to take over. If you're constantly having financial loss, if you can't pay your obligation, right, to pay your staff, and if you're feeling burned out,
That's the time.
it might be time to go.
I mean, whenever it comes to the business and figuring out that time, some businesses are going to tell you, like, if it's a cash intensive business, once there's no cash,
That's it. Pack it up.
somebody's going to make the call
Usually
for
big-
you, right?
Usually brick and mortar. Because
Yes.
you have obligations.
Yes. All right. But then there are some of those businesses that are in that gray area where it's like, should I not?
You could
What
shut
if
down.
I could push through and then I can come up, on the other side? There's a little bit of gray on that side. There needs to be some analysis done properly.
Yeah.
And I think with the amount of information that we have today and that we have access to, even on our phones, social media, websites, whatever it is, I think it's really dependent on the entrepreneur to
Yeah.
make sure you do your right research
Yes.
before you jump in.
Yes.
Don't just go in blindly just because everything you've touched previously turned to gold means that this next time it's going to be gold again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just like our financial advisors tell us, past performance
Yes.
is not indicative
Yep.
of future performance.
100%.
Right?
100%.
So you have to make sure you do your proper due diligence up front. Make sure you are well capitalized, because in the end, most people have to shut down because there's no money.
Yeah.
I would
All
say
right.
in closing, if you're thinking about doing a brick and mortar business because you have obligations to bills that don't exist to brick and mortar businesses, right? If you're doing a online business or whatever, your overhead's low. So if you're doing a brick and mortar business, I always tell people when you start a business, have a plan for when you're not going to be in the chair. Meaning that like you have to hire an associate or someone to replace you. Literally every business that I look into, I'm like, okay, so
the first goal?
what's your plan for when are you going to constantly be an employee of the business? Like what's the goal? Is it a 6 months outlook or a year outlook? That should be factored into your math. Like I need to work this much. If the math ain't mathing for you to exit in X amount of time, then that's not a business. That's just a job.
Yeah.
So but I had to learn that the hard way. So
All right. Well, to round it up, well, hopefully you guys enjoy the show. You know, like Tosin said, if you feel like you want to get into a business, make sure you do your research, make sure you do your homework, talk to an advisor to mitigate the chances of you shutting down, right?
Don't be scared,
But
though.
all the things that we've listed, if you're experiencing it, might be an indicator. Hopefully that's not you. Really appreciate you guys for tuning in.
Drop a
Until
comment.
next time. Oh, make sure you like, share, and subscribe.
That's
If you
right.
have any questions, drop a comment.
Yeah. Until next time, guys. Peace.
All right.
Thank you.